All right. Thanks everyone for joining the Future Proof podcast. My name is Alex Mysinek. I am joined here with Monica. Monica is the owner and CEO of SureRev.ai. She's going to go into a little bit about her business. Then we're just going to get into conversation about her origin story, a little bit more about the business and kind of where she sees, tech and this industry going in the near future. So Monica, thank you for joining me.
Thanks, Alex. Great to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you introduce SureRev AI a little bit, kind of go into, what it's about, what you guys do, and then we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, so SureRev.ai is a go-to-market operating system. We're building a full-stack operating system for product marketers and go-to-market leaders to align them on strategy, messaging, and execution. That's our mission. We feel markets aligning on go-to-market strategy breaks or makes products in the market. That's what we are here for. Obviously using Gen AI in the mix, and it's all agentic AI technology, but meant for the product marketer to make some good strategic decisions.
Now, I mean, I dug around with it a little bit. I was super impressed with the product, and I even messaged you and emailed you like I was like, super excited for this podcast. So why don't you explain kind of what your perfect client is, or maybe what stage of their product creation business? Is this something that someone has to use right away before they even start like the ideology of like what they want to create? Or is this also someone that can go back in reverse and say they already have a product that they've, released and use this to kind of improve their messaging and their go-to-market?
Yeah, great question. So go-to-market strategy at the essence is your market strategy. When should you have a market strategy? Before you put a product or even start thinking about a product in the market. And so I've made the product free to begin with for anybody who is thinking about putting a product out there. It's best trained for B2B products, but it'll work just as well for B2C as well. So it's meant for any B2B organization who is wanting to build a market strategy, position their products in a very highly competitive market. But my sweet spot where I'd like to focus on is the messy mix. And the messy mix is you have some idea of your product, you've been somewhat successful in the market, you're trying to grow, you've put a sales and marketing team together, you brought a product team together, and now everybody's clamoring for the direction and what is a sweet spot in the market that you should go after. So that's where we bring in the entire capability of the platform with various integrations and so on. And so the messy mix is where I'd like to focus on. But really, working with students, working with early stage startups, I give away 30 minutes free for consultation, and the product is free to start with, and you can actually start building out your strategy just free.
Nice. What, kind of going back to, the clients that have used it or the companies, what kind of examples of like kind of the best stories or the best utilization of SureRev AI?
The best utilization has been with, like I said, some of the early stage companies so far, and we're also growing. So we are now getting into some of the larger orgs. But, at the very early stages, they bring in go-to-market consultants, and they've spent weeks, months talking about their ICP, talking about the product positioning. I had Identity Plus was one of my early stage customer, but they spend a lot of time on the product positioning and wordsmithing their product positioning. But when they saw SureRev, they could connect the dots. They could understand the problem that they were solving, what is the range of possible ICPs they could go after given the competitive landscape. And for each of those ICPs, the value prop was slightly different, and therefore the positioning was slightly different. So they actually saw the building blocks of what creates a good positioning and where are they best suited to serve and be able to articulate that better. And, early stages, you're still learning. With each customer, you're learning. So you are fine-tuning your ICP. You are learning about their pain points, their motivations to buy, their challenges, their objections, and that changes your value prop. That changes how you position yourself. So it's a very iterative process. So what they got out of this was how to connect the dots between the process and the range of ICPs that they could go after, and how they would best position themselves for this range of ICPs, and what would be the tier 1 versus the tier 2, tier 3 ICPs. Because early stage, you do want to experiment, and we allowed that experimentation to happen.
I like that because I even put my business in there and had to play around with it. I didn't get to kind of dig too deep into it, but I can definitely see how that really could help, not only speed up the process, but also make it a little bit more refined and think about things that you haven't thought about and kind of help with that kind of ideology or the ideation of what you're trying to do. So the agile go to market TM like OS, kind of explain that to me. Is that essentially what SureRev AI is? And what does that mean in kind of practice to you?
Yeah, that is what what we are about. We are about bringing agility into your go-to-market process. And I say, if you are being agile without alignment, is just chaos. So we bring the agility and we bring a single platform for you to align on it. The agility, because of what I just mentioned. Early stages, you're experimenting with different ICPs. You want to see what sticks. You want to see which positioning is sticking, which messaging is sticking. And then once you figure that out, then obviously you double down on it. Late stages, you suddenly, I just saw a post on LinkedIn actually. Everybody's complaining about there's just so much competition now, and it's bound to happen, right? Because everybody is vibe coding and AI, putting in all kinds of AI tools in the market. So your competition and your competitive landscape is changing. Guess what? That makes you that prompts you to sort of change your value prop and change your positioning. So that it's in the Gen AI era, you cannot survive without being agile. You cannot do your positioning once a year. You can't build your messaging once a year. So you have to try different things, and you should try different things in a way that keeps you aligned at the same time. So I have a process and a workflow that actually defines that for you, but also integrates it with different data points.
So with the kind of the data and the help from, your company, where are you seeing a lot of product launches missing the mark, the most in like 2025 going into 2026? Where is SureRev really helping in that sector for that part of it?
I think a lot of it has to do. I come back to positioning all the time because it's a very misunderstood concept in marketing. Folks on the marketing and the sales side also are focusing a lot more on the downstream tools. So they'll try various tools, they'll try various lead generation tools, various messaging, various channels, and things still don't stick. And I come back to, are you differentiated enough? Are you, when you send that message out, can you say you're the number one or number two in this? And that's where I think a lot of it just becomes noise. And that's what positioning does for you. Can you become number one or number two in the market? And can you define yourself that way? You don't necessarily have to have product features for that. You could have a service. You could have a podcast. You could have some novel way of attracting users on YouTube. I mean, that's all part of your value proposition. So I think when product launches when miss the mark, given from my SaaS experience, 5-6 years ago, it was lack of alignment and strategy. And the core of that means, how do you differentiate yourself in the market? Do you have a message for the right channel, for the right product that says you are number one and number two in this?
I think there's a lot of disconnect too between like sales and marketing and on that alignment with the go to market. Are you seeing that be a big issue? And kind of how would you go about, guiding someone on aligning sales and marketing? Because I mean, I heard a very interesting conversation on a podcast a couple days ago where they're, basically always saying that, sales is the most important part of your business because, obviously they're the ones that create the sales and, sell your product. And that's why salespeople are, paid what they're paid and kind of, traditionally one of the higher paying jobs. But I also heard this person basically said that marketing is the most important and should be the highest paid because if you don't have clients to sell to, it's going to be pretty hard to sell your product if you don't have anybody to sell to. So, moving forward in the next, couple months, years, near future, I think there's really going to be a much more emphasis on marketing, and sales is obviously, picking up the tail end and selling the product. But what are you seeing with those two, parts of a business?
I think the problem right now is everybody's using very siloed tools. Even with ChatGPT and the LLMs, they've got all these multiple GPTs and so on. Everything's very siloed. People still can't get access to performance metrics from all their channels that they can view them, right? So I think it's about time that sales and marketing get on the same page and on the same platform. It's about time somebody takes stock of defining a market strategy, and then you can put the ing in marketing, right? Because it's about product market fit, it's about product channel fit, it's about product business model fit, right? So all these things have to be figured out, and they should not be figured out by somebody who is selling the product in the field. So I think marketing needs to take stock of like, do we have a market strategy and who owns it? And sales needs to then make sure that they have all the enablement tools to go and sell and close the loop, right? I'm big on collecting the feedback. And that's one thing that we do in the product. We not only bring you market data, we enable you to collect data from your internal tools, what's happening in the engineering tools, what's happening with sales, and we make it a platform of action, right? We don't let the data sit static somewhere. You just bring in the feedback, align with your marketing or product peers or customer success peers, and hear what your customer said and how that influences your market strategy.
Oh, that's really great insight. And I'm obviously sure Rev AI helps with all of that and just makes that process a lot more streamlined. What do you see looking ahead? How do you see AI really reshaping go to market strategies over the next couple of years?
It's there's still a lot of education to be done on that, right? Everybody's still, I think, what I hear and I see is everybody's using AI as sort of a chatbot thing. Um, I also, for sure, Rev, I have a 9-step process on defining the market strategy. Even I have to go educate like why this works. Why do you think about your segments? Should think about your segments this way versus what you've been doing in the past. But AI has what Gen AI especially helps you do is connect the dots. What was the output of one team can be now connected as an input into the other team. And so you can actually bring on that alignment. So for example, like competitive analysis was done by a completely different team. And there are still, in modern SaaS companies, you still have functions defined purely for market analysis and competitive analysis, and product has their product roadmap thing going on, and they're defining their product strategy. Marketing is doing their own thing with their messaging frameworks and all that. You have the opportunity of connecting everything from what's happening in the market with the market trends, market research, what your competitors are doing, directly to defining your ICP, directly for defining what your product should do and how it should stand out in the market. And, it's something that we've done in our product, but it's still, I think, when I talk to customers, it's still an education that we have to do to align them on this concept and also to enable them to bring all their data sources into the mix.
I mean, it's hard because I mean, there's so many bottlenecks out there that you can really get into when creating an ICP or just kind of creating that go to market. From what you've seen with B2B companies with bottlenecks, with their strategy, their messaging, or their execution, kind of where are you seeing the main bottleneck? That
I think it's still, unfortunately, organizational. Just getting over that friction from an organizational standpoint, really thinking about how you're going to enable each of your functions with AI and, which tools are legacy and which tools you should invest in. I think there's still a lot of friction, honestly, in the sort of the larger companies when it comes to that.
what are a couple tools that you like can't really just go out without having, with creating an ICP or creating a go to market or even execution on the go to market strategy?
We use a lot of our own agents, actually, to be honest. I do supplement it with data from a few data providers, Apollo being one of them, LinkedIn Sales Navigator being another one, for sure. So, but we do a lot of the work with our own agents, and we've written agents for, certainly we've got the agent to define the strategy, but then for collecting the data and refining the data, we leverage some of these tools. The outreach we haven't scaled yet because of the where we are in the business, but we are in the process of figuring that out as well.
Okay. Talking about your growth, when you think about your growth and your business, kind of what is your toughest challenge? What is your helping other people with their go to market and their strategy? Where has been your biggest bottleneck or your biggest restriction on your growth?
Well, it's again gaining attention, right? In this market, right? Like everybody's got a tool that says something similar to what you have. So how do you gain attention? You gain attention through content, right? I do post on LinkedIn, do podcasts such as this one, go to events where I speak. So gaining attention and building that trust with the market is huge. Once you have that trust, then you can sort of engage with the conversation further. Cold emails can work. If you've got like a list of 1 million, then sure you have a return on that. But it's hard to penetrate with. You need a larger infrastructure to do that kind of cold outreach. But I've started because I have this unique methodology and a point of view around agile GTM. I do a lot of outreach just to build awareness on what it is, talk about the pain points in marketing and sales, and then take it from there. So once I have that trust, people connect with me, then I can obviously tell them a little bit more about what I do.
What is the biggest myth about a go-to-market strategy that you wish would like kind of like go away? What are you seeing people think about what a go-to-market strategy is versus what it actually is? Is there anything there that you're like, you hear a lot of like mistakes or kind of misconceptions about a go-to-market strategy?
Yeah, I think what you hit on earlier, right? People think sales is the most important thing, right? But sales, if you cannot tell your salesperson what that repeatable process looks like, what good looks like, who your ICP really is, what your product really does to solve their pain, you really are not helping out the sales function at all. So, and a lot of the tools in the market really are those downstream tools. They literally help you hunt and then capture that lead and book a meeting. I'll go back to saying the same thing. Go to market means make sure you have a market strategy first. So you have a market strategy, and then you have how to address that market. What type of product, which channels, what's your messaging. Are you really standing out as the number one or number two? Otherwise, you don't really have a chance, especially in the MarTech or the RevTech space. It's hard. But yeah, so start with the market strategy first. And it is about go to market is about having a market strategy, and then worry about your sales tactics, your KPIs, which are hugely important. And they're part of the overall, go to market motion. But very few people, I think, know how to build a market strategy without the help of very expensive consultants. Let's put it that way. There are consultants who would do it for you for 20K or something.
For sure. Yeah, you're paying for it. It'll probably be awesome, but yeah, you're out. Something where you can put a little bit more time and effort into it with SureRev.ai, I think is, a much more valuable because if not only are you doing it yourself, if like I feel like if you pay someone to do a market strategy or pay something to get done for you in a business on the back end, if you don't really do it a lot or if you haven't done it before, you can't repeat it. You're going to have to pay another person to do a new one, or if you open up another business. So getting your, hands in there and really getting into that creation of that part of your business, I think is, more beneficial anyway in the long term to someone's growth as well.
And I'll say this, don't leave it to your marketing and sales function. The CEOs and founders must understand what their market strategy is. And you need buy-in from them because they are the closest to the business. They understand the market, they understand the business overall. So the CEOs and founders must absolutely have their fingers in it, and they should own it overall.
If a founder's listening to this podcast, what is one thing that they could do to improve their go to market?
Make sure your product stands out and can differentiate itself. And you don't say that, or you cannot do that with just putting a statement out there that my product is X, Y, and Z, and we are unlike so and so. Make sure you understand you're riding the right trends in the market. You're addressing the right segments with the right pain points. You understand what your competitors are doing and why you're one or two, given that competitive landscape. You understand your capabilities that make you that number one and number two. So make sure you know how to connect the dots and don't just like go and put a product out there with a one-liner saying, or with a homepage copy that says, we do this and this is how we benefit our customers. Go through the pain point or exercise. I wouldn't say a pain point because we make it easy now, but go through the exercise of figuring out your market and why you are one of the best to solve that problem.
It's really good advice. All right. So if everyone wants to find you, I know that Your website's SureRev.ai. Where else can they find you? And if they want to get started, what's the easiest way?
LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn. I think my email is also there on LinkedIn. Try out the free app. Go to SureRev.ai. If you want to book a meeting, you can book a meeting with me or with someone on our team on our website. So website is www.surerev.ai. Find me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect and happy to help early stage founders or anyone who needs help with their market strategy.
Thank you so much for joining me today. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Alex. It was great. Thank you.